Hello folks, today we have a very interesting video because we have learned that some now Ubers Pokemon are getting unbanned from Ubers to be in OU following the release of the Indigo Disk. The Indigo, I don't know what the hell it's called. I think it's the Indigo Disk. So basically the council did a unban slash do not unban vote with 8 Pokemon who were banned to Ubers during the Teal Mask, and what came of it was 4 of these 8 made the unban list, those being Gliscor, Roaring Moon, Volcarona, and Darkrai. So it's pretty interesting list. I'll link it down below if you guys want to go look at this whole page yourself. The biggest takeaways are only one person voted for do not unban Volcarona. Even Finchinator voted to unban it, which is interesting considering he's the one that rallied to ban it in the first place. Darkrai got an unban from every single member as a unanimous vote, which is pretty rare. Gliscor was also all unbanned except for one person. And as far as who's the other one? We got Roaring Moon. Yeah, only 2 do not unbans. So we're just going to talk about the sets that these guys usually ran. What I think is going to happen once the Indigo Disk drops, if I think they're going to stay or not. But yeah, let's just hop right into it. So we'll go in alphabetical order, or not alphabetical order, but the order that they went here. So Gliscor, it was a fantastic Pokemon, right? With the addition of spikes in this metagame, it's a very spike-laden metagame, and Gliscor was great at putting them. It had Earthquake, and Knockoff, U-turn. It had great utility. It could pivot out. It did lose Roost, but that hasn't even been a problem for it. I did forget to mention, maybe instead of Earthquake, Knockoff, U-turn, Protect, you could even run Protect in this slot instead to garner more toxic healing. Gliscor's, it's not a signature ability, but it's poison heal ability, which is very unique. Allowed it to heal a 12th of its HP. So instead of people running Roost, they would run Protect instead, which is really interesting. And that's where most of the problem came from. It was hard to kill Gliscor. Gliscor is a very bulky Pokemon. 75 HP doesn't matter when you have 125 defense. It's very hard to kill. You could Terra to save it as well. It has a lot of utility, so it's constantly gaining momentum between Knockoff and Spikes. It could pivot out too if it really wanted to. It was a very useful Pokemon. It's one of very few defensive Pokemon that is considered too overpowered for OU, which is interesting. There, of course, the exception being the 680 BST legendaries like Giratina, but yeah, Gliscor was ruled as too much, and it got shipped off to Ubers. This was the main set. And there's one more set. There was a double dance set. This is the one I used. Pinch Your Pits, shout outs. Oh my gosh, I am so sorry. I'm forgetting the guy who made this set for me. Shout outs to him. Oh my gosh, he's gonna call me out in the comments. I'm gonna have to look at the Discord. Hold on. Shout out to Hate Rice. I figured it was Hate Rice, but I didn't want to say Hate Rice if it wasn't Hate Rice. But shout out to Hate Rice to go. So you could use a double dance Gliscor set. Gliscor is naturally bulky enough, and with getting healed at the end of every turn, plus the toxic synergizing with Facade, you could tear into a normal type to boost it even further. Earthquake's just good to spam, and yeah, Swords Dance Agility. It was just a very good set, and this isn't the set that got it banned, obviously, but it was another set that was a problem. So, what are my thoughts on Gliscor coming back, returning? What's going to happen with them? I think so. The thing that happens when the Indigo Disk drops is a lot of legendaries come back in the game, which is going to naturally increase the power level of OU, even if just slightly. It will increase the power level of OU. The question is, are enough Pokemon that are good against Gliscor going to stay in OU and stay relevant in OU that Gliscor is no longer going to be a problem? That, Gliscor has counters that can easily take it out, aren't worn down, and I'm not so sure. I say I'm not so sure as in like, oh, he's guaranteed out. I just really don't know. It really just depends. I think that Gliscor probably will stay. At least, with how the council is with banning defensive Pokemon, I think if there is one of these Pokemon they'd be like, let's ban you last, it's probably going to be Gliscor. So I think Gliscor will stay around for a while even if it does ultimately get banned. Next Pokemon, Roaring Moon. Roaring Moon's an interesting one. So Roaring Moon actually dropped to UU for one tier cycle at the very end of the Pokemon Home metagame. It was before it got knockoff, which we'll talk about that in a minute. It used to run Crunch as its Dark Stab. So you'd run Crunch, Acrobatics, Earthquake, you Dragon Dance up. You could run Iron Head instead of Earthquake. It didn't really matter. You just needed a coverage move. And Roaring Moon has a lot of good coverage moves. So what the hell happened, though? As soon as the Teal Mask dropped, this Pokemon was just considered OP, broken. Nothing about the stats changed. The ability didn't change. The item typically didn't change. But there is one big problem. Rillaboom got Grassy Glide, and Roaring Moon got knockoff. So, actually, Rillaboom getting released, that's for another set. We'll talk about that later. But knockoff got added to Roaring Moon's kit, which knockoff is huge because even if it's a not very effective move, it's still a stab boosted move that is base 97.5 power, and it removes an item. So it's guaranteed momentum, it's guaranteed good damage. No one can switch into a knockoff freely because there's no Mega Stones or Z Crystals or the like. Well, I guess Arceus plates, but that's not really relevant to OU. So no matter what, knockoff, you're constantly getting momentum with Roaring Moon now, which is insane. And not only so, your opponent has to worry about switching in their defensive Pokemon on it now, which means Roaring Moon can get free Dragon Dances, even if it does nothing. Even if a defensive Pokemon does come in and wall it, it still gets knockoff, which is still momentum for the rest of your team. It was a huge deal. It was a huge change. And that's what ultimately got it banned. Some other things that didn't help its case is Rillaboom coming back into existence, which, a terrain Pokemon. Rillaboom's the only good terrain setter in OU right now. And Grassy Seed, to synergize with Acrobatics. Grassy Seed boosts your defense, which is actually Roaring Moon's only bad defensive stat. Roaring Moon is a very bulky Pokemon, surprisingly. So, Grassy Seed helps mitigate that a little bit, allows you to set up more freely. Of course, it's going to synergize with Acrobatics. Again, coverage move, and then knock off for free momentum no matter what you're going into. And we'll talk. And it's funny because Rillaboom going into OU ultimately got two Pokemon banned. Roaring Moon to a very lesser extent, and Sneasler to a very good extent. Sneasler's not even considered to coming back. Well, it was considered. It's just not coming back. It wasn't even a close vote. The other set you could use is Banded Roaring Moon. This was more of a set before Roaring Moon got knockoff and before the Teal Mask came out. You could use this on Sun teams, which Roaring Moon is occasionally seen on Sun teams. Not as nearly as often as the other two, but sometimes you can see it with the Torkoal Roaring Moon Walking Wake hyper offense archetype. And yeah, it was a pretty good set. You could just U-turn out. You got room for two coverage moves, or you could even make room for Dragon Stab and Outrage or Dragon Claw. That's also an option. And then, of course, before knockoff, it was Crunch, but now, of course, it's going to be knockoff. It's still a good set. It's not its best set, but it is one of the sets that you can use with Roaring Moon. So, do I think Roaring Moon's going to stay? Probably not, unless the power levels just increase astronomically. I don't see Roaring Moon staying for very long in OU. I think it'll be quick banned, personally, but I'm still interested to see what happens, so we'll see. Volcarona, the matchup moth. So I've had very strong feelings about Volcarona's ban. Although looking back at it, it probably was the correct decision. It doesn't make me any less salty the way that it was gone about. It was not, I don't think it was handled well. I still think it was originally like one person voted to ban it, or maybe it was even no one voted to ban it, and that was Finch and Air would have been the one if any of them, but I don't think any of them initially said we need to ban this. And then the next quick test, quick suspect, whatever, it was not like 100% banned, but it was banned. And I point the finger at Finchinator because he was the one going on Twitter and talking about it and how it needs to get banned. But I don't know. Maybe there's something else going on. I just don't know about it. But I don't know. It leaves a sour taste in my mouth the way that Volcarona got expunged from OU. Don't really feel great about it. Now, I do think it was probably the right decision, but I don't like that it was not voted on by the community. So, okay, that's all I'm going to speak on that. Let's talk about Volcarona itself. Volcarona, Fiery Dance, awesome move. 50% chance to raise your special attack by 1. Awesome. Quiver Dance boosts all your specials and your speed by 1. Awesome move. So why was Volcarona banned? Because it's been okay in previous generations. It's usually pretty good, especially with heavy duty boots now. You can switch it in whenever. You don't have to lose 50% of your health to Stealth Rock. So why was it banned? Because of Terra. Yay! So Terra basically matchup moth is always a matchup moth, right? Because there's so many moves you can run. You can run Bug Bugs for Bug Stab. You can run Sidekick. You could run Air Slash. No, you don't. I've never seen a Volcarona run Air Slash before. You can run Giga Drain. You could run. Actually, that's kind of it. That's actually pretty much it. You could run Hurricane too. You could run Hurricane. That is an option. I don't think I've seen anyone of sound mind use that, but you could run it. You could. Psychic is good for Toxapex, while Giga Drain is good for water types. And then you could also obviously run Terra Blast, which is where the matchup gets complicated, because Terra type setup sweepers are very scary with Terra types, because it allows you to, what would be a super effective hit or at least a neutral hit can turn into a not super effective hit. So you can turn into a Water Joint, which would protect you against fire type moves. It would flip the matchup of fire moves on its head, kind of. Flying type moves, you become neutral to. Rock, you lose your 4 times rock weakness. Fairy, of course, is the other good type. You could also run Terra Grass just to boost up your Giga Drain, and then instead of running Terra Blast, you run Morning Sun. You could run Psychic, and then you could run Terra type Psychic, and that would just completely destroy Toxapex, who is still very relevant in OU right now. You had options. You have options with the matchup moth, and that's why it was so freaking good. And yeah, it'll be interesting to see if it'll remain. My personal thoughts is with the power level increasing, I think Volcarona is going to have a tougher time setting up. I also would like to think that the metagame is also more ready for it to set up, and with taunt users and everything, but that I cannot say with 100% confidence that is going to be the case. But yeah, I think it'll stay. Oh, I totally forgot. It can run different spreads too. I usually run a defensive spread with my Volcarona just to make setting up easier, and I can get like 3 Quiver Dances. But you could also just run a balls to the wall, maxed out special offensive set. You could do that as well. So overall, I think Volcarona will stay. I would like Volcarona to at least be voted upon if it's deemed as too OP, but we'll see. So this is the most interesting one, Darkrai. Darkrai was voted to come down from Ubers to OU. This is the funny thing about Darkrai. Darkrai is literally so irrelevant in Ubers. I did not even know it was back in the game. I didn't even know it got back in the game with the teal mask. It is literally that irrelevant. It's so bad. It's a somewhat min-max Pokemon with meager, is that the right word? Like whatever defensive stats. A 600 BS is not uncommon in Ubers or in OU at this point. Even a 135 attack, 125 speed, which 125 used to be blistering high, 135 used to be downright deplorable, and now it's just kind of like the new normal, So with such a high speed stat though, Darkrai can easily run Choice Specs and destroy pretty much not everything, but a lot. It can be an instant wall breaker. I'm thinking something like Dark Pulse, Ice Beam, Psyshock, Trick can be used. Trick would cripple walls, Psyshock for Blissey, Ice Beam for your grounds and flying types, and then Dark Pulse is just such good stat because No one's immune to it. Very few types resist it. You could do Terra Dark. I have Terra Dark as well, just like fully max out Dark Pulse power. This is the most spammable move. This is one of the most spammable moves in the game. So the thing about Darkrai is it has a lot of coverage moves. You could run Psyshock. If you wanted Bolt Beam coverage, you could run Thunder. You could even run Blizzard instead of Ice Beam. You could run Focus Blast. I'm not sure why you would for Steel types, I guess, but then if it's a Steel type, I think you'd rather click Dark Pulse anyway. You can run. I feel like there's other moves you could run that I'm missing. You could run Shadow Ball, but again, you have Stab Dark Pulse, so I don't know why you would run Shadow Ball personally. Yeah, it's a very good move pool. It has Sludge Bomb as well. Yeah, so it is a very good move pool. I think this will be the most common set, but there are a couple others I want to talk about still. Darkrai does have Nasty Plot, which is a really good setup move, of course. Hypnosis synergizes with Bad Dreams. It doesn't even like to run its signature Dark Void anymore. Dark Void's having 50% accuracy while Hypnosis has 60, which is very sad in my opinion. But yeah, you can make your opponent fall asleep, hopefully, Nasty Plot up, and then you have Dark Pulse for Stab, and you have Hex to... Hex is basically Stab if your opponent has a status ailment, which, you know, with Sleep, of course it will. You could also run, instead of Hex, you could run Substitute, and you're basically running a quasi Spectrier set with this. Except instead of Will-O-Wisp, you can run Hypnosis. But if you wanted to, you could also run Will-O-Wisp, and you could also run Thunder Wave. And that, my friends, brings me to my final set, which is a physical utility set. So Darkrai has a decent utility move pool in Thunder Wave, Taunt. It can set Thunder Wave, you know, you can run Will-O-Wisp, you can run Hypnosis. You have 3 status moves. Hell, I even could see some sets running 2 of them, running Hypnosis alongside Thunder Wave or alongside Will-O-Wisp. I could 100% see that happening. Darkrai also has good utility moves, Sucker Punch for some priority, and then Knock Off. We've already talked about Knock Off in extensive detail, but, you know, on top of Stab, removing item, very good, very excellent. Also, for these setup types, I have decided to go with Ghost, as it allows you to avoid fighting type moves, and most people are not going to click a Ghost type move against a Dark type Pokemon. And most people are not going to click a Dark type move against a Ghost type Pokemon. So it allows you to at least have one turn of setup with that. Fairy also, yeah, you lose your Fairy weakness. What else? What else does Dark die to? Fighting, Fairy, and oh my gosh, this is so bad. I should know my type matchups better than, oh, Bug, yes. And then you resist Bug. So you can resist the U-turn if you want to. So I don't think the set will be very used, but again, Darkrai has a 90 attack stat. It's not unheard of. I don't think it's going to be unheard of. I don't think it's going to be completely unviable, you know. So yeah, that is my Darkrai analysis. I think Darkrai will stay, but I think it's going to be a lot more broken than people assume it's going to be. With a 135 attack and 125 speed stat, that is pretty freaking high, man. It really is freaking high. And I know we have so Spectrier for some for a comparison is 145, 130 with a much higher HP stat but slightly lower defensive. This is much more min-max Pokemon with the 65 attack stat. Another Pokemon that's comparable to is Chi-Yu. Now Chi-Yu has Beads of Ruin, obviously, but it has the same special attack stat on paper at least, and it also has 100 speed. This Pokemon's a lot frailer, except for the special defense side, but that's just another comparable Pokemon. There's one more Pokemon I was thinking about when I was typing these out. Hold on. I'm remembering now. It was Zamazenta, which has a similar attack and speed. Zamazenta is actually... Zamazenta is very good, but it's not OP. So, this guy has similar attack and speed. Of course, Zamazenta bolsters higher speed over attack on, like, it's kind of Darkrai but inverse. And I know there's a lot more answers of physical attackers, but still. Overall, I think Darkrai's going to say, I think he's just going to be a lot better than people are expecting him to be. And if I'm wrong, that would be really funny, actually. And I could definitely see myself being wrong here. The Pokemon's very frail, so that's its biggest, like, downside. But I think with multiple sets that it could potentially be running, it's going to be very, 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 very good. So that's my overall analysis. What are your guys' thoughts on these 4? Leave them down in the comments below. Are you happy they're coming back? Is there anyone else you wanted to see make a return to OU, or just come back to OU in general? Let me know. Are you guys excited for the Indigo Disk? Let me know. Thank you all very much for watching. I will see you guys in... I do have one more video that I should probably edit and record, but I don't know if I'm going to have it done in time before the Indigo Disk comes out. So we'll see about that one. But if I don't see you before the Indigo Disk, have fun in that, and we'll see you guys later. Bye.